Full disclosure, when I went to the San Antonio Zoo, I didn't see either of the animals that I'm going to tell you about today. But I have seen both of them at other zoos. So this episode is still, at least somewhat indirectly maybe, inspired by my recent visit to the zoo. Now, as you probably guessed from the title of the episode, we're talking about pandas, both the giant panda and the red panda. Now, despite both being called pandas, at least in English, giant pandas and red pandas aren't closely related. They do have some similar characteristics, and evolutionarily, they do share a common ancestor, and they do live in the same general geographic region. In fact, their ranges overlap somewhat. But giant pandas are bears, related to the bears that we have here in North America, black bears, grizzly bears, and polar bears. Red pandas are the sole living member of their taxonomic family and are more closely related to skunks and other mustelids, raccoons, and even seals than they are to bears. So let's take a look at the two, let's be honest, adorable animals known as pandas. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, and this is the Dispatches from the Forest podcast. I'll start with the red panda, sometimes called the lesser panda. If you've never seen one, you need to hit pause and go look it up. Seriously. I would argue that red pandas are among the cutest animals on the planet. Red pandas have a body that's 20 to 25 inches long, 51 to 53 centimeters, plus a thick bushy tail that adds another 11 to 19 inches, 28 to 48 centimeters. They weigh between 7 and 33 pounds, 3 to 15 kilograms. They have dense reddish-brown fur, hence the name, a black belly and legs, white-lined ears, a mostly white muzzle, and a ringed tail. They look like the cutest parts of cats, raccoons, and foxes all mashed together into one cute little package. Red pandas are native to the Himalayas and are found mostly in Nepal and China, but also India, Myanmar, and Bhutan. In fact, there are technically two subspecies of red panda, the Himalayan and the Chinese red panda. DNA evidence shows that they diverged about 250,000 years ago, probably after being separated by glaciers on the southern Tibetan Plateau. These two subspecies do have some minor differences in the color and pattern of their coats, and some subtle differences in the shape of their forehead and snout, but behaviorally they're basically the same animal. Only time will tell if the scientific community, whoever it is that decides these things, declares them distinct species in their own right or not. Red pandas are tough to observe in the wild, so most studies of their behavior comes from captive animals. They're generally either nocturnal or crepuscular, sleeping intermittently at night. They rest and sleep in trees or other elevated places, stretched out prone on a branch with their legs dangling down when it's hot, or curled up with their hind limbs over their face when it's cold. Red pandas are well adapted to climbing. They have flexible joints and curved semi-retractable claws. They descend to the ground head first with their back feet holding on to the middle of the tree trunk. And on the ground they move quickly by either trotting or bounding. Adult red pandas are solitary and they're also territorial, although their territories aren't very big, averaging just under a third to just under a half square mile, 0.94 to 1.11 square kilometers. Like most other territorial animals, they mark the boundaries with urine, feces, and glandular secretions. They have larger home ranges in areas with low forest cover and will reduce their activity in places with people, livestock, and dogs. Technically, red pandas are omnivores. They eat leaves, fruit, blossoms, acorns, eggs, birds, and small mammals. But they primarily feed on bamboo, since it's abundant year-round and the only thing available in the winter. Everything else is usually seasonal. Now that said, red pandas have the gastrointestinal tract of a carnivore. They can't really properly digest bamboo. It passes through the gut in 2 to 4 hours, so they have to consume large amounts. They eat over 3.5 pounds, 1.5 kilograms, of fresh leaves or 9 pounds or 4 kilograms of fresh shoots every day. Red pandas communicate with each other in a number of ways. At least 7 different vocalizations have been recorded, comprised of growls, barks, squeals, hoots, bleats, grunts, and twitters. Growling, barking, grunting, and squealing are used during fights and aggressive chasing. Hooting is a response to being approached by another red panda. Bleating is associated with scent marking and sniffing. During mating, males tend to bleat, females tend to twitter. I don't know what that means, but there you go. During both play fighting and, well, actual fighting, combatants curve their backs and tails while slowly moving their heads up and down. They then turn their heads while clapping their jaws, move their heads side to side, and lift a forepaw to strike. They stand on their hind legs, raise the forelimbs above their head, and pounce. I'm sure it's very serious and terrifying for them, but seriously, look up videos of red pandas fighting. It is the cutest fight you'll ever see. Red pandas are what's called long-day breeders, not to be confused with day-long breeders, which is how I kept reading those two words. Meaning that mating happens after the winter solstice as the days grow longer. So mating takes place between January and March, and the babies are born between May and August. Estrus, the time during which the female can get pregnant, lasts only a few days, but females can go into estrus multiple times a season. But the length of time between each estrus cycle remains a mystery. As the reproductive season begins, males and females interact more, and they'll rest, move, and feed near each other. Prior to giving birth, the female selects a denning site, like a hollow tree, log, or stump, or a rock crevice. Then she'll build a nest using nearby materials like twigs and sticks and branches and bark and leaves and grass and moss. Litters can be anywhere from 1 to 4, and the cubs are born blind but fully furred. They're completely dependent on their mother for the first 3 to 4 months when they first leave the nest. They nurse for the first 5 months. They may stay bonded with their mother until the next breeding season, or they might strike out on their own sooner. Red pandas are fully grown at 1 year and reach sexual maturity at about 15 months. While they can live 15 years or so in captivity, their lifespan in the wild averages closer to 10. Threats to red pandas include all the usual suspects: habitat destruction and fragmentation from development, livestock grazing, and clear-cutting, along with illegal hunting and trapping. Over the last 50 years, the red panda population in China has decreased by 40%, and Western Himalayan populations are also considerably smaller. Thankfully, all the countries where the red pandas live have designated areas to protect their habitat. So that's the red panda. Now let's talk about the giant panda. Now, people rarely say giant panda when talking about this animal. And when someone says panda, it's usually short for panda bear because, like I said, giant pandas are, after all, bears. They're easily recognizable by their white coat with black patches around the eyes, ears, legs, and shoulders. They tend to be more rotund than other bears. Adults weigh 220 to 250 pounds, 110 to 115 kilograms, and they're 4 to 6 feet, 1.2 to 2 meters long. Giant pandas are endemic to China, found exclusively in 6 montane regions in a few Chinese provinces at elevations up to 9,800 feet, 3,000 meters. Now, despite being technically a carnivore, 99% of the panda's diet consists of bamboo leaves and shoots. And unlike other bears, they have a 6th toe, basically a thumb on their forepaw to help them grasp bamboo and hold it in place. And like the red panda, they still have the digestive system of a carnivore, which makes it hard for them to properly digest and get energy and protein from bamboo. The most important part of their bamboo diet is the shoots, which are rich in starch and have up to 32% protein. So pandas have evolved to be able to digest starches better than strict carnivores. Two of the panda's most distinct features, its large round size and round face, are actually adaptations to this bamboo diet. Pandas have a low body surface area to volume ratio, which indicates a lower metabolic rate. This lower metabolic rate and a more sedentary lifestyle helps the panda to subsist on a nutrient-poor resource like bamboo. That round face is a result of having powerful jaw muscles that attach from the top of the head to the jaw. This helps the panda's large molars crush and grind fibrous plant material. Also, for the record, raw bamboo is toxic. It's high in cyanide compounds. Strict herbivores have ways of detoxifying these compounds in their body tissues, but pandas instead have microbes in their gut to help do this job. To prevent poisoning, about 80% of the cyanide is metabolized and discharged in their urine. The rest is detoxified in various other minor ways. Now, pandas eat about 25 different species of bamboo in the wild. When I first read that, I didn't think it was that important. I mean, bamboo is bamboo, right? Wrong. Because all bamboo of a particular species displays synchronous flowering, death, and regeneration, giant pandas need to have at least 2 different species available in its range to avoid starvation. Now, modern giant pandas became herbivores 2 to 2.5 million years ago, but their extinct ancestors were omnivores. And like I said, 99% of their diet is bamboo, but that doesn't mean they won't eat meat, fish, and eggs on occasion if it's available. It's just that they're not exactly hunters. Like other bears, they're generally solitary. Adults have a defined territory, and females in particular are not tolerant of other females in their range. Social encounters happen primarily during the brief breeding season when pandas living in proximity to one another will gather. Pandas communicate using vocalizations, but mostly through scent marking. You should be glad that humans developed language and don't communicate with scent marking. Giant pandas rely heavily on olfactory communication, and it plays many roles in their social situations. Scent marks and odors are used to spread information about sexual status, whether a female is in estrus or not, age, gender, individual identity, dominance over a territory, and choice of settlement. They do this by excreting volatile compounds, aka scent marks, through the anogenital gland or with urine. Giant pandas also have unique positions in the way they deposit these compounds. Males deposit scent marks or urine by lifting their hind leg, like a dog, or rubbing their backside, or standing in order to rub the anogenital gland on a landmark like a rock or a tree. Females, on the other hand, just squat or simply rub their genitals on a landmark. Makes me appreciate texting, I'll tell you what. The season, mainly whether or not it's the breeding season, plays a major role in determining which orders are prioritized. Outside of the breeding season, females prefer the odors of other females because reproduction is not their primary motivation. But during the breeding season, odors from the opposite sex will naturally be more attractive. Because they're solitary and their breeding season is so brief, female pandas secrete chemical cues in order to let males know their sexual status. Pheromones in the urine of the females increase testosterone levels in the males. Male pandas also secrete chemical signals that include information about their sexual reproductivity and age, which helps the females choose a good mate. This odoriferous communication also plays an important role in how pandas choose their habitat. Pandas look for odors that tell them not only the identity of other pandas, but if they should avoid them or not. For example, size can be conveyed through the height of the scent mark. Since larger animals can place scent marks higher up, an elevated scent mark can indicate a competitive advantage. Pandas are still able to climb and take shelter in hollow trees or rock crevices, but they don't establish permanent dens. Like other subtropical mammals, they don't need to hibernate, so they just change elevations to deal with seasonal temperature changes. Giant pandas reach sexual maturity between the ages of 4 and 8, and they can continue to reproduce until the age of 20 or so. The mating season is between March and May when a female goes into estrus, but estrus only lasts for 2 or 3 days, and it only occurs once a year. The gestation period is somewhere between 95 and 160 days. This variability is because pandas sometimes experience delayed implantation, something I've talked about with other animals on this podcast. About half of the time, giant pandas give birth to twins, but in the wild, when twins are born, usually only one survives. The mother picks the stronger of the cubs, and the weaker one starves. I know it sounds brutal, but the mother just can't produce enough milk for both cubs. Pandas don't hibernate, so they don't store fat like our black or brown bears here in North America, who give birth and nurse while they're hibernating. The father panda has no part in helping raise the cubs. Now, when panda cubs are first born, they're pink, blind, and toothless, and weigh just 4.5 ounces, 130 grams, which is about 1/800th of their mother's weight. Proportionally, they're the smallest babies of any placental mammal. Cubs nurse for 30 minutes at a time, 6 to 14 times a day. But the mother leaves them for 3 or 4 hours each day in order to feed herself, during which time the cubs are vulnerable to predators. Now, adult giant pandas have few natural predators other than humans, but young cubs are vulnerable to attacks by snow leopards, yellow-throated martens, eagles, feral dogs, and the Asian black bear. Even subadults weighing up to 100 pounds, 50 kilograms, are sometimes preyed on by leopards. A month after birth, the color pattern of the cub's fur is fully developed. Its fur is very soft, but it coarsens with age. The cub will start crawling at 75 to 80 days, and mothers will play with their cubs by rolling and wrestling with them. After 6 months, the cubs can eat small quantities of bamboo, though mother's milk remains the primary food source for most of the first year. At 1 year old, giant panda cubs weigh roughly 100 pounds, 45 kilograms. They live with their mothers until they're between 18 months and 2 years old, so the interval between births in the wild is generally 2 years. Now, like the red panda, giant pandas are threatened by continued habitat loss and fragmentation. Its range is confined to a small portion of the western edge of its historical range, which once stretched throughout southern and eastern China, northern Myanmar, and northern Vietnam. And the wild population is also scattered into more than 30 subpopulations, each with relatively few animals. Combine that with a low birth rate in the wild, and even lower in captivity, plus the impact of climate change, and it makes conservation a challenge. Now, thankfully, it's not all bad news. In July of 2021, Chinese conservation authorities announced that following years of conservation efforts, the giant panda population in the wild had exceeded 1,800 individuals, and their status was changed from endangered to vulnerable, a step in the right direction. And with that bright spot, we're going to call this one a wrap. If you want to support the podcast, well, I won't try to stop you. Here's some ways to do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some sweet Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate through PayPal using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com, which is also a great way to contact me if you have a question, comment, or a request for a future episode. You can also use that email address if you want to send a check. Just send me an email and I'll let you know what the mailing address is. You can donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest. Click on products, find something you like. We have a lot of things over there. Finally, follow Dispatches from the Forest on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. The Dispatches from the Forest podcast is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.